Hi, this is Steve Feldman, publisher of Floor Covering News, and today I have the pleasure of being with three major commercial contractors in the U.S., all Starnet members. We have Randy Weiss, R.D. Weiss, out of New York, Connecticut, many other places, now in the Midwest. Randy Rubenstein, Rubenstein's Contract Carpet, Seattle. And we have Cheryl Asierno out of Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having us.
So we have two areas that got hit really hard, Seattle and the New York area. First, let me ask you, talk about what happened to your businesses, your respective businesses, from, say, mid-March, until, say, May 1st.
Well, Steve, speaking from the West Coast side, we've been very fortunate in a sense in that all the projects that we were on pre-COVID were deemed essential business once we merged into the COVID crisis. So we were working in hospitals and MOBs, transit facilities, airports, schools. So all of our business fortunately continued on and in the field. And, there was a hiccup or two for a week or two where certain jobs were shut down because one of the workers tested positive, but that was cleaned up and then work resumed. So for the most part, we were really unaffected and have been unaffected, fortunately.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's quite fortunate for us when we see the suffering that everybody else is going through. But fortunately, we were able to avoid that. During that same period of time, I sent all of our folks home from mid-March to mid-May, and they were working remotely. And that worked very successfully. They did a great job. I called them back about 10 days ago because I thought the situation had come to a state where it was safe. So we did all the appropriate stuff with regard to disinfecting at the office and had everybody observe all the PPE rules. And so we're back mostly at full speed, but we're keeping our fingers crossed because nobody knows what tomorrow's like.
What about you, Cheryl?
I had a similar experience to Randy's. We haven't actually stopped. And being that we were also deemed essential here in Denver, our work hasn't let up and we've stayed busy. We've had a handful of jobs that slowed or canceled. And, but for the most part, our jobs have been going forward, as they were. There were a couple of job sites that someone had been exposed, but they took the proper precautions and then work moved along. I too closed my office. In fact, I closed my office about a week earlier than Denver's stay-at-home order because we had exposure here. And one of my employees became very sick with COVID. And so I sent everyone home, set them up to work remotely, and it's worked out pretty well. And in fact, I think it's going to be hard to get some of them back. But currently we're working on a team basis. I've split the entire staff into team A, team B, and then we work alternate weeks. And I've been here every day for about the past 3 weeks or so. So we're getting through it and business is still pretty strong, although I'm seeing a little bit of a slowdown right now. That's probably going to take us into the third and fourth quarters. But overall, I'm happy that we're doing as well as we are.
What about you, Randy? You're like me in the epicenter.
Yeah. So in March, Steve, we were working off a backlog. Contractors were trying to figure out what Cuomo really meant with some of the early executive orders. They weren't very clear as related to construction. Everyone was creating their own definition of essential business. And so for about a month, we were trying to operate on a business as usual basis. And then we, then in mid-April, everything other than hospital work, transportation work, et cetera, ground to a halt. And but the other side of our business, as you know, we have a service business, a maintenance business,
Cleaning and maintenance.
and that started up with disinfection and cleaning very early in this process. So, we had declining revenue on the project side, but increasing revenue on the other side. So net, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And as far as our office is concerned, our office has remained open with limited office staff coming in, and only a small group of operations people coming in every day.
I'm going to ask you, for the first 5 months of the year, right now, are you guys trending upward, flat, down?
I'm trending flat currently. I had high expectations for another banner year, a record-breaking year, but I am starting to see a little bit of a slowdown. So I think we're going to end the year flat, maybe slightly above, but I don't.
And if last year was a record-breaking year, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. All things considered.
What about you, Randy?
Randy, West Coast is flat, but again, as you noted and Cheryl said, it's flat at a fairly high level. So we're okay with that.
Okay.
But our concern is beyond 21, quite frankly. We'll talk about that in a moment.
And Randy, East Coast. How are you doing right now, and what are you projecting for the year?
So I think right now, because we had a good 5 or 6 weeks where it's really been lights out on the project side, we've really ground to a halt. We're trending slightly down. The question is, will this be a U-shaped recovery or a V? You can find just, people on both sides of that.
That's correct.
We're anticipating that we'll come in on budget this year. But if we take a snapshot of where we are right now today, we're off of where we thought we'd be.
How is being a Starnet member helping you through this time?
Well, I think, Starnet has always been about collegiality and best practice sharing and things like that. And I think the cooperative, as it's done in the past, does a pretty good job of communicating across the board to all of its members about what's working, what's not. There's been a number of webinars that are internal around how to, manage through this crisis.
I would agree with that. And especially where the maintenance business is concerned, there's been some great information coming out about some value adds that we can bring to the market. And I know Randy Weiss has had a lot of experience with that. So really just the shared practices and best practices.
And the Starnet staff has done a great job of being a terrific clearinghouse of all the volumes of information that seem to come out every day with regard to rules and regulations, whether it be federal or state agencies, Canadian or US. So that's been very helpful. It's been a great resource. But what Randy alluded to in his comment was really pertinent, and that is that the best value of our members network is to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, how are you doing? Have you ever seen this before? How are you handling it? What's new? Can you give me some tips? So it's that networking which is very valuable, particularly in a time like this, where this is a situation of first impression for all of us, and we don't know quite well how to attack it. So that's a great benefit and value of the membership in the cooperative.
And the friendships too, you can't overstate that. I've received a couple of phone calls just from friends in Starnet to say, how are you? How's your business? How's your family? And those are nice calls to receive.
Of course. In terms of segments, where do you see optimism for the rest of this year and maybe into 2021?
For my market here, I would say we see optimism in healthcare and multifamily. And I'd love to say corporate because that's the backbone of my business. I'm a little concerned about companies, especially going forward, reducing their footprint, people working at home. So that's sort of a wait and see for us. We're very diversified across most of the segments, all of the segments, in fact. So I think, though, that the healthcare and the multifamily is going to stay the strongest for us.
Randy?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with Cheryl. Healthcare, multifamily, high-rise multifamily for us is particularly a big segment. But we're also quite prominent in the public sector. And so where we have public sector jobs that are fully funded through the approval of bonds, those will be going forward, and those really are at very little risk. So we're pretty confident that through the end of this year, our job log should be carrying us as much as planned. But we'll find out when more of this evolves.
And Randy, what about you?
So not too much different. I do think that corporate is going to be a crapshoot for a while. We speak to a lot of, major headquarters folks in New York City, and they don't know when they're coming back. They don't know what it's going to look like, how much space they'll need. Definitely healthcare and multifamily assisted living's going to do well for a while. Retail, nobody mentioned retail. I think that's really the toughest place to be right now in this business. I can't even imagine what that's going to look like 6 months from now.
Right. Do you think that the way people design offices going forward is going to change? For a while there, everything was about collaboration, public spaces, everybody out of their offices in shared spaces. Do you believe that's going to be a trend that goes by the wayside?
Randy's shaking his head. No, I think it is. I'm already seeing that.
Yeah.
And I do too. I think it will not go away, but it will be modified substantially. Mm-hmm. And along the same line, I can't tell you how many occupiers of prime retail or prime commercial office space downtown, Portland and Seattle, have said after working from home experience, why are we paying these exorbitant downtown office rates for all this space? Do we really need it when we can show that we can work effectively remotely? So I think that's going to have a big impact on the commercial real estate market and downstream to us, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just jump in. I want to add one thing. I know of a large call center here in Denver for one of the cable companies, and they've already sent 500 people to work from home, and they have no intention of bringing them back. But if they are going to reconfigure their offices, that's an opportunity for us, hopefully, to get some floor covering work out of it.
Agreed.
Sorry, Randy, I jumped in there.
Now, what changes in cleaning do you think you're going to see going forward? This is going to be a big question for Randy Weiss, because that's a big part of your business.
So I think cleaning is the new security. After 9/11, the cost of security, the focus on security skyrocketed. And right now, today, cleaning is a big conversation. Not cleaning like it was done in the past, where you vacuum once a week and you just sort of go through the motions. Now it's deep cleaning. Every one of our clients is talking deep cleaning with a high frequency.
What does that mean for you? What does deep cleaning mean?
Well, that means doing the carpet, all the upholstery, in our case, sanitizing surfaces using a fogging technique. So
is that brand new for you?
Actually not. We got into that business when SARS and MRSA came on the scene, but it was a very small business then. And through the years, not many people cared about a few viruses in their workspace. But today, of course, it's almost a prerequisite to bringing your employees back.
Do you think this is going to stick around for a long time? People tend to have amnesia. Things, I'm not going to say went back to normal after 9/11, but people gained the confidence to get back on airplanes and everything like that. What do you foresee as far as your businesses go, the changes that you have to implement today? Is that going to be forever, or do you think it's something temporary?
Well, I think Randy touched on something earlier that could be the game changer, and that is if working from home can be successfully executed across the board, then the amount of corporate space that there is to maintain and construct and refurbish, it's a much smaller footprint.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
I'm hopeful that we'll return to normal, but I'm not sure if it's going to be the same normal. So I think it's a ways out there.
Are there any suppliers that have been stepping up their game for you guys over the past 2 months?
A lot of the larger soft surface suppliers, well, they're not necessarily all soft surface, they do hard surface too, but the larger mills have extended longer terms for us.
That's been a plus. Any other mills do anything that bears mention aside from extending terms? Not really? Okay.
Well, one of the things, Steve, is that we've noticed a flurry of calls from mill reps. And we're not normally on exactly their radar, but we have been because they have lost their ability to go out and knock on doors and call on the A&D community. That's been closed to them. Mm-hmm. So I'll give them credit for the fact that they pick up the phone and say, how are you doing? What can we do for you? Let us know if we can be of any assistance whatsoever. So that's been a change that we have noticed immediately as a result of the fallout.
We've talked about a bunch of the segments. We really haven't talked about hospitality. Are you finding hospitality is stepping up to renovate right now while occupancy rates are down?
Well, I can tell you that we're currently involved in a new hotel construction as part of a casino hotel construction, but that's an anomaly because it's Native American on the reservation, and therefore it's not subject to the stay-at-home rules because it's a sovereign nation. So that, of course, is continuing. But as far as the broader hospitality network, my guess is that we're going to have to wait until the airline industry is restored and people have confidence to travel before the hospitality industry is going to see a jump. And I don't know how long that's going to take. They're in deep trouble. They're waiting with their hands out for, federal bailouts at this point. But we'll see how that comes. They will be restored. The question is to what extent and how soon. But I don't think hospitality is going to precede that.
No, I would add that we have about a half a dozen hotel projects, and historically, hospitality has not been our strongest segment of the market, but they haven't slowed down. We've got one that's coming out of the ground and they're moving forward full steam ahead. So it hasn't affected the projects we were working on. They've all been just going forward as normal. I will say that we've had calls from a lot of restaurants. We do a lot of restaurant work, and we consider that hospitality. Mm-hmm. And we've had a lot of opportunities to clean some things up, refurbish their floors. So those have presented opportunities, which is amazing to me because I think they're the hardest hit of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you this much. I was on a few planes over the last week. Coming from New York to Atlanta, I think there might have been 40 people on the plane. But going from Atlanta to Florida and going from Florida to New York, I had 90, 95 people on the plane. And tell you the truth, somebody was on another airline yesterday to move out her daughter from Arizona, flight from Philadelphia to Arizona. Even the middle seats were taken. So I don't necessarily know if that's a great idea for social distancing, but I think from what I'm hearing, from what I'm seeing, I think the airline industry has come back a little bit over the last week or so. And I think that might bode
Did
well
you feel
for us.
comfortable though? Did you feel safe, comfortable?
I did. I mean, nobody was sitting next to me. I don't know how comfortable I would have felt if somebody was sitting next to me in the middle seat. But you know, I was, I was fine with it. For me, it just goes under the headline "Living My Life." How long can you not live your life? And travel is a big part of mine. So
Right.
that's that. Um, I asked you about suppliers before. One other thing, just changing gears for a second. Um, there's been some noise about tariffs going up in August. I mean, obviously, the United States and China may not be on the greatest of terms right now. Um, with that as the backdrop, will buying decisions be different for you guys in advance of that as it relates to LVT, given the disruptions that occurred last year? Um, would you guys favor like domestic guys, the Manningtons, the Mohawks, the Armstrongs?
Yeah,
Well,
Steve, I think we'll try to follow up as we have done in the past, and that is to emphasize the domestic producers. And that means you're at a sacrifice most of the time on price points. But when you're negotiating as opposed to out in the public bid market, it's a lot easier to make that sell. We'll continue to do that until we see that we're losing substantial business because of that. But we don't want to be forced into that position. We'd much rather support our local Starnet vendors who are in the business of manufacturing hard surface.
I think we would echo what Randy said. And in addition to that, I think the lower price point is always attractive to the buyer, but the people in the middle that have to arrange for transportation over an 8-week time span, which can turn into 12 weeks and can affect your installation schedules and all of that. I've never been a big proponent of buying an imported item that I can source here within a reasonable, price range.
Cheryl?
I agree. I try to promote those domestic suppliers whenever I can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Last question. Forecast for the rest of the year. Where are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? What are you expecting your business to be when, you're having your glass of champagne on New Year's Eve?
Steve, I think we're set for the rest of the year, that is 2020, and probably into most of 2021 based on our backlog. And that's even accounting for some fallout because of the crisis on the backlog. But I'm not so concerned about this year and next year. I'm really focused on what's gonna happen in 2022, because I think that when those that control the investment and development dollars in these institutions that are in our country that control that, my question is, how big of an appetite are they going to have going forward for continued growth? And that's the $64 question. This crisis, I think, is going to be transformative for all of us, how we live our life, how we work our life. I think that healthcare services and educational services and entertainment services and transportation services are all going to be changed in how they're delivered to the public. And what that looks like, it's way too early to tell, but I can't help but believe that there will be some significant changes in how we go forward.
I would agree with what Randy said. The die has been cast for this year for the most part. We can, change our margins slightly going into the rest of the year. I'm more concerned about 21 than Randy may be. And, but going forward, we have a lot of changes that we're going to be dealing with. So I echo his comments.
Well, assuming there's a vaccine eventually, assuming there's a treatment, assuming this virus takes the path that, say, SARS did, we really don't hear so much about it anymore. And that's also, I would assume, a possibility. In that case, excuse me, like I said, people tend to have amnesia. I'm a little more optimistic than most that things get closer to normal, as we hit the end of the year, third, fourth quarters, beginning of next year. I'm expecting there to be a surfaces. The distributor show in November plans to go on. I think things will be a little different, but I'm of the mindset that there's a good possibility that once this is under control in one way, shape, or form, I don't think it's so doom and gloom. Agreed?
Well,
Trying to be optimistic.
Randy?
Well, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, generally. My concern is that the trillions of dollars in debt that we've piled up, no matter how rosy the stock market is, no matter what happens to our individual businesses, that is going to loom out there for a long time, and I don't know which president will have to deal with it, but it is looming, and I don't know what that's going to do going forward.
I think that's the biggest issue right now is the uncertainty. But what do they say? One day at a time, right?
Wait and see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cheryl, Randy, thank you for being with us today. I only wish you the best of luck going forward. Hopefully, I get to see you at a Starnet meeting in the fall.
We're looking forward to it. I'm planning on being there, even if I have to drive.
I don't know where it is, but I'll be there.
It's in Louisville, Kentucky.
Well, I wonder, it's not Derby time, is it? The Derby is the first
No,
time
Derby got canceled.
now. I'm sorry, Saturday in September. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for hosting, Steve.
Thank you. It's good
Great
to see
seeing
everyone.
you guys.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.